Okay. Hey, Hassa from Hassa Reviews is here, and well, let's get started. And we are today, and of course, Moon Knight has just recently wrapped up, and well, time to give it a review. So this is the first MCU Disney Plus show that actually is actually featuring a brand new superhero as the lead compared to the other shows which are set on established characters. Set around established characters is what I'm trying to say. So, being set around a new superhero to join the MCU, here we go. And people have really praised it a lot. And you know what? I think this is probably I'm not sure if this is my favourite yet of the TV series, the Disney Plus shows. But, for what it is, it ended up pretty good. So, what's the premise? So, Stephen Grant is a middle-aged man living in Europe, working in a museum and, with a knack for Egyptology. However, what Stephen doesn't know is that he's actually another identity. He actually has multiple personality disorder, but he's actually the alternate personality of a man named Mark Spector. Spector is a former hitman who is on the run, who just so happens to be a superhero known as Moon Knight, who is the servant of the Egyptian god Khonshu, who enacts Khonshu's orders on those who have done the wrong thing. Basically a punishment. He's trying to rectify their sins, or those who are on Khonshu's bad side. However, things start to get complicated when both Mark and Steven meet up with a cultist named Arthur Harrow, played by Ethan Hawke. Harrow used to be Khonshu's previous avatar, or Moon Knight, I should say, before he deserted him and chose to follow the other banished Egyptian god Ammit. Khonshu does not want his former avatar to unleash Ammit to the world, so he has Spectre go out to the open to stop Harrow from releasing Ammit with the help of Spectre's ex-wife Layla. And as Mark and Steven go on their adventure, they eventually have to come to terms, learn how to balance each other's lives as different identities, make amends with Layla, who they haven't seen in forever, and stop Arthur Harrow. So the storyline is very dark in this. In fact, a lot of people have given praise to the darker tone, and you know what? I think it actually helps. This is a very serious, more serious than most shows, and even the subject matter around the show with cultists and betrayal and assassinations, and hitmen, and even the beliefs around the Egyptian, mythology are woven in pretty well for this show, and everything goes by pretty well. I think, and the handling of Egyptology is actually done pretty well. I used to be huge into Egyptology. I used to love doing a bit of research here and there when I was younger, and I can tell. I really love how they were able to weave in all these different factors, all these different myths and all that, and legends around ancient Egypt into the show. So I appreciate that. The performances are pretty good. Oscar Isaac, who I was a little surprised, who ended up doing really well as Moon Knight. I thought he was great as Mark Spector and Stephen Grant, and how he's able to balance both these different identities. It was going to be interesting how he handles it, and his accent, his broad English accent for Stephen Grant is a bit over the top at times. Kind of makes sense when just how Stephen developed into his own personality within Mark, you know. And you know, even Hawkeye, I actually think he's one of the best MCU villain in the TV series at the moment. I mean, he is threatening, he is, you know, sinister, he is very mysterious, and you know, even with how he is defeated, you know, it's ambiguous, but you know, you never know whether he is actually, okay, he is technically dead by the end of the show, but spoiler, but how he dies and the fact we don't see it is intriguing. But we'll get to the ending a little bit later. As I said, I think Mark Spector is a really good character, and I really hope we see more of him and see him interact with the other heroes. I mean, with how much we focus on the Egyptian gods in this show, and how Thor: Love and Thunder will eventually will have a villain who's out to kill all the gods, gives me hope that that'll be where Moon Knight makes his first interaction with the other heroes. But you never know for sure, especially with, again, how the show ends. I think another thing I like is the mystery of the first 5 episodes, and how Mark Spector and Stephen Grant, who was the original personality, and how the other came into existence. And the mystery that we get to in the conclusion is different from the comics, but is very similar. I'm not going to go into how, but let's just say I've never read the comics, but from the Moon Knight comics, but what I have learned is that Mark Spector's family in the comics his relationship with his family in the comics is very complicated, and that's how the other personality of Stephen Grant came into being, including and his other personalities as well. So now they changed the origin story quite a bit in the show, but you know, it still works and it captures how, you know, the comics did it, but in a different way. And you know what, I like when Marvel shows when the MCU changes, you know, the origins of how certain things work, you know, to make it more up to date. You know, and I think it does well. And another thing I like at the moment, this is probably I'm not sure if I said this before in Loki or even What If, but this probably feels like the most or even, you know, even in Shang-Chi and Eternals, you know, how this feels very, very much self-contained at the moment, since there's no real references to the other MCU material in this. Not that I can aware of. Maybe there's a few references here and there, but you know, at the moment, this is pretty self-contained. And you know what? I actually kind of like it. I like when stuff is self-contained compared to the greater extent of the universe. But you know, eventually this will lead to something bigger down the track. Similar to how Guardians of the Galaxy, the first 2 films can be considered their own thing, even with Thanos appearing in a few moments and being talked about by the other characters. You know, they were mostly their own self-contained stories until Infinity War and Endgame. And now, but do I have any problems? I would say there's 2. There are some action scenes I'm not particularly a fan of. I mean, like specifically some of the big ones. I mean, not just with how ambiguous certain things are when Mark and Steven switch personalities at certain points, but you know, I like the smaller scale ones. Like the final fight in episode 5 in particular is perhaps my favorite, just because of the context of the fight and what the outcome is towards the end of the episode. But some of the major ones, like the fight in episode 3, where they encounter Gaspar Ulliel's Midnight Man. Well, I forget the character's real name, but you know, here's when he's fighting his goons, and later, well, as I say, Gaspar Ulliel's character, I think it's Anton Mogart, I think it is. It's not particularly, it's done well, but it's not as, I don't think it's done as well as, say, the smaller fights. Like the first time Moon Knight shows up when Mark and Steven summon the suit. That I actually kind of like. And you know, as I said, the final fight in episode 5, that was great. But the bigger scale ones aren't particularly my favourite. And I will give I should also mention rest in peace Gaspar Duelli. He did a really good job in the episode he appeared in. Really, it was really tragic to hear how he died in a skiing accident, you know. But then there's the ending. Well, the mid-credit scene does make up for it. The original ending of episode 6, when you get to the credits, outside of Mark and Steven coming together, coming to terms with each other's existence, and you know, proving people wrong that they can handle each other. But you know, how it ends, you know, it's not my favorite way of how an episode ends, you know, before we get to the mid-credits, you know. I'm not particularly a fan of how it ends. I mean, there is a bit of comedy in it, you know. I'm not being... It's just a nitpick, but I'm not a big fan of how it ended. But as I said, the mid-credits scene does make up for it, so, yeah. But with that said, Moon Knight is a really good show. Probably will watch it maybe again in the near future. Probably before, you know, if Miss Marvel comes out, you know, which will be next month. So you never know. But you know, overall, I had a fun time with Moon Knight. It's self-contained and you know what, it works really well. I like it. It's an 8.5 out of 10 hat stars for me. I loved it. You know, I think it's really good. Probably gonna watch it every now and then. You know, have fun. So I think you can guess what's next. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which will be my next video, which I probably will upload in either 2 to 3 days. But in the meantime, this is Hassan from Hassan Reviews out, and I shall see you for Doctor Strange. Ciao.